I started laboratory animal science because I got triggered by Bert van Zutphen. He was a professor in laboratory animal science at Utrecht University, and he gave lectures on the fact that good science and animal welfare can go together. And that really triggered my interest because I thought that's what I want to do in life. You see Bert van Zutphen here on the picture with Bill Russell. Many of you will know him. He is world famous because he was the author of the Principles of Humane Experimental Technique, where the 3 R's have been written down for the first time. And, well, you can't come to a conference on laboratory animal science now, and the 3 R's is the topic: replacement, reduction, and refinement. My first step, you won't believe it, in laboratory animal science was doing a literature review, writing a review on the use of the rat in atherosclerosis research, and it was also published in Artery in 1988. Anton Bijnen was my supervisor at the time and taught me a lot about how good scientific practice should be performed, and so I learned to critically evaluate the literature. And then again, the message to me from that literature review was that good science and animal welfare do go together, and when they go together, you usually get more relevant results. The third person from Utrecht University that has inspired me to work internationally is Vera Bouwmans. She introduced me into the international boards and also taught me what the value is of working internationally in science. Since then, many years have gone by, and I will skip a lot of that information, otherwise my talk would last too long. I lived 1 year in Japan, and I lived almost 10 years in Denmark, which has broadened my scope a lot, living abroad in other countries and experiencing other cultures. The person that has meant a lot to me there was Timo Nivelainen. He's a professor in laboratory animal science in Finland, and together we have worked a lot on the European scene of laboratory animal science. Coming back to the Netherlands from Odense in Denmark, I became the head of the Central Animal Laboratory, and this position is combined with a professorship in laboratory animal science, and the research director at that time, Karel van Os, did a lot of effort to make this position a scientific position at the same time. I've also been trained to become an animal welfare officer, and I also did part of my internship at this university, that was in the 80s, I think. And then I met Van der Gulden and Joop Koopman. Both have been managers of the Central Animal Laboratory, and they taught me a lot about laboratory animal science, especially in the medical field. Here you see the first director of the Central Animal Laboratory here in Nijmegen, Rinus Dobbelaar, who really was the brains behind starting the facility as a central facility from the start. This is my life question, my life koan. How can we improve science and welfare simultaneously? And not only of the animals we're using, but because we're using so many animals for our human welfare, I also think this should be incorporated when we're using laboratory animals, how we can do it better for humankind. A koan comes from Zen Buddhism, and it is defined as a puzzling, often paradoxical statement or story, as an aid to meditation and a means of gaining spiritual awakening. You may think she is crazy. Why does she talk about koans when we're talking about science? Well, I think there's a huge parallel between science and meditation, because we're trying to find better answers all the time. If you get a meditation question, then you have to come up with a better answer every time. That's the same thing we do in science, but we also want to find better questions, also as a koan, but also in science. Of course, the process to get to the answer is very different. The meditation works more on an intuitive level, whereas we in the science try to prove everything by scientific data. There's a very clear relation for me personally to the Zen, because my husband is a Zen master. And he's meditating here in the beautiful Japanese surroundings. And I think it's very Zenistic that the Zen master also has to wash and dry his own socks. So I thought that was a good detail on the picture to show you. The title of my inaugural lecture was posed as a koan. Does a rat have Buddha nature? This is a question where you can keep on asking it and finding better answers all the time. In my inaugural lecture, I demonstrated the importance of a literature review by illustrating what people have published on the levels of phytoestrogen in laboratory chows, the so-called standard chows as written in publications. You see there's a tremendous variation. And if you look at what the effect is, then over 250 microgram per gram chow, you will get a tremendous interference with experimental results of all sorts of studies. And so studying the literature makes you realize what factors influence your results. And phytoestrogens are plant estrogens, but they behave like estrogens in the body of humans and animals. So they will influence the processes there. December 2006, we founded the 3R Research Center. In our minds, we had to give free service and advice to researchers to help to find the 3Rs and implement the 3Rs. Well, we did that for 2 years, and it was free because our license holder gave us a subsidy for doing so. We got 30 questions per year, but then in 2009, due to the reorganization of the medical faculty, we had to charge money for it, and no more questions came. So I think this illustrates what the priority of the 3Rs is. So we started to ask ourselves, how do people search for the 3Rs and how do they implement them? And we did 2 questionnaires, one locally at this university and one nationally in the Netherlands. The results of those questionnaires showed that none of the respondents ever included funds for the search for the 3Rs in their research budgets. We asked, when you apply for the ethics committee, you have to give your argumentation for the 3Rs. How long do you search for it? On average, it was a 1 to 3 hour search. Well, everybody knows when you search for 1 to 3 hours, you don't find really a lot. The search terms were not used in an optimal way, which led to either too many or too few search results. And the more than 100 3R databases and websites were not known and not used. And that is not so strange because all these databases have a different build-up and a different search strategy. So it's almost an impossible task to start searching them. So, Malcolm, you were the cause of this all. In 2004, I think, I heard your lecture in Porto, in Portugal, which was within the Coast Action B24. It's a European fund for building stronger networks in Europe. And so we met, I think, at least 2 times a year and had good discussions on how we could further this. But when I heard this lecture, really, that was the answer to my life koan. Yes, systematic reviews and meta-analysis. What I had been searching for from the start, with starting a literature review, well, really, the medical field had already discovered it and built it up into a structure that worked in my mind. This is one of the definitions of systematic reviews. I will just read it out to you and not discuss it with you because then we can discuss it for ages, I think. But this is the process of systematically locating, appraising, and synthesizing evidence from scientific studies in order to obtain a reliable overview. The phases in a systematic review are expressed here. First, you phrase the research question, which is quite important. Then you define the in- and exclusion criteria of which papers are relevant for you or not. You search in at least 2 databases, you select the relevant papers, you assess study quality, you extract the data, analyze results, and if possible, perform meta-analysis, so statistics of all the studies together, and then you interpret and present the data. Many researchers tell me, I don't need to do a systematic review because in my field of research, of course, I know the literature and I visit conferences. Of course, that is true, but systematic reviews, and especially meta-analysis, offer something extra. This is a table from Carlijn, was published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease, where she studied the influence of fish oil on Alzheimer's disease in animal models. On the left side, you see the table where fish oil and the effect on cell death has been printed, the results of 6 studies. 4 show a significant effect and 2 a non-significant effect. When you do a meta-analysis, you calculate the effect size and the confidence interval, then suddenly you can compare the studies, and then you see that all the studies go to the same direction of the 0 line, and you can calculate the total effect of all the studies together. And I think this is really an extra value of meta-analysis that is extremely useful for laboratory animal studies. What Carlijn also has experienced is that it's extremely difficult to get all the data to do the analysis. So I would make a real plea for open access and making data available of animal studies so systematic reviews become more easy in the future. The Cochrane collaboration has been presented by Michael Bracken this morning, is existing already for almost 2 decades, and I think is our enlightening example. And Rob Scholten, who's the head of the Dutch Center of the Cochrane in Amsterdam, gave a lecture at the European Laboratory Animal Science Conference in Helsinki, and he had a very simple advice: do like us, follow our example. Gilly has memorized the Montreal Declaration, so I won't go into depth, but I think it is a step in creating awareness of that it is needed to make further steps in creating a better culture around planning, executing, reporting, reviewing, and translating animal research. Gilly has also memorized the first exploratory meeting in Montreal, where people interested in the field of systematic reviews for animal studies have gathered for the first time. And yesterday we had a second meeting at the mansion next to this auditorium, and you see the group here assembled and discussing that. Those were very intensive discussions, I can say, and I think there is also still the difficulty of integrating the disciplines together, which we are struggling with. We have defined the needs. We think we need an umbrella organization to take this further, and we have defined goals for the future that we want to further science by analyzing existing evidence, by providing tools, by standardizing data collection and defining outcome measures as examples. We need to educate, produce guidelines, and give guidance on how to do it, stimulate data sharing, and produce strategies to reduce publication bias. So an advisory group has been formed yesterday, and we hope to take this forward. Going back to 2011, we got 2 prizes, which we are very proud of, and which also count in the output of science. And the quality is something to be discussed, I guess, with the university of how they look upon that. But we are very happy that the animal protection movement gave us a prize, which is called the Lef in het Lab in Dutch, which I think translates to guts in the lab in English, for our work on systematic reviews. Also, the Swiss Association for Laboratory Animal Science, and Marcel Geiger, who's here, he's the president of the SGV, gave us a prize for the gold standard publication checklist, which is meant to be used when planning experiments, and so that you don't forget important elements that need to be mentioned. The reasons why we've now moved from the 3 R's towards systematic reviews, because systematic reviews contribute to a better quality science. And in the medical history, what I've been told is that especially the quality assessment that is published of other publication has led to a new higher standard of publication of the new publications. Of course, we're still working on implementation of 3 R's, and because you do such a thorough search with systematic reviews, you will avoid unnecessary duplicating animal studies. Natalie Percy had a lecture in Montreal, which she will no doubt in her next lecture tell herself as systematic reviews can contribute much more to the 3 R's. And last but not least, this paper was also mentioned by Michael Bracken. It leads to improve patient safety because drug side effects can be found when you do meta-analysis of animal studies together, which the individual studies did not show. And in the example of Pound, these serious side effects were the same as in the human beings. So, 3R Research Center focuses now fully on systematic reviews. Marlies and Carlijn will give lectures on their work later on this afternoon. Judith is a PhD student and Rob de Vries is a postdoc. And we have the main focus on education at the moment, as we think we really need to educate. And so, finally, I'm almost there, Herman, the 3R Research Center, but you've already seen that on the bags in circle. So, Systematic Review Center for Laboratory Animal Experimentation. So that will be our new name for the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you.